Well, we're back for the Chris McPherson Show to talk all things French Open. Day 11, we're really getting into the meat and potatoes of it now, and I'm rejoined by Christian Montigan after a few scheduling clashes. The man from the first serve is back on deck to turn monologues into duologues. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but hey, we'll go with it.
We'll go with it. Yeah, good to see you again, Chris.
Good to see you too, mates. And right, we're getting right into the business end of this. We're recording this as day 10 is getting underway, and there's some action happening there that we talked about. Well, I talked about yesterday on the show after a day off for both of us. We're now into day 11, though, which will be the second day of quarterfinal action. And let's start with teen prodigy against outsider Mira Andreeva, the sixth seed, taking on Lois Boisson, the 361st ranked player in the world. This is a stunning story. One, because you've got a teenager in their second French Open quarterfinal. Two, because you've got someone who's come from outside the top 350 in the world, knocking off the world number 3, Jessica Pegula. I'm just going to roll a few stats to you here. So the lowest ranked woman to reach a Grand Slam quarterfinal since Kaya Kanepi in 2017. Kaya Kanepi was a former top 20 player, though, when she did that. She's also the first player to make the women's quarterfinals on their Grand Slam debut since Carla Suarez Navarro in 2008 at the French Open. These are just phenomenal pieces when you look at it. The other thing is she's the first French woman to make it in some time too. I think since maybe Caroline Garcia, maybe 8 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. But I mean, she's a wild card as well, right? So that's what makes it even more extraordinary. She's been given that opportunity, as you mentioned, world number 361 heading into it. So basically, the general tennis community don't really know too much of her, right? And now she's just sort of come out of nowhere. We sort of love these stories, right? Last year at Wimbledon, it was Lulu Sun, the New Zealander, who sort of sort of rose from the ashes into the quarterfinal, which is such a shock there as well. So you always get these stories popping up, but against Pegula, it was funny because Pegula was dominating. I thought in those first couple of sets, just Bosson really turned it on in terms of her forehand. I think she has the most topspin left in the draw. So she always uses her forehand. Moves her body across, gets into the right positions, and clay suits her. To that point, right? Because there's more time to adjust your body for the ball. The ball's obviously a bit slower. Once it gets to you, it's not like a hard court. So the conditions really suit her. And I think for against Mira Andreeva here in this quarterfinal matchup, look, Andreeva obviously goes in as the favourite. Her form over the past 12 to 18 months, she's really taken her game to another level, despite only being a teenager, right? But for Bosson, this is new territory. She's never been obviously to a quarterfinal before at a Grand Slam. It's going to be Bosson's inexperience that might get the better of her in this matchup, because we know Andreeva, she's played in these big games before at Grand Slam level. Obviously went deep last year as well. So Bosson, again, like I said before, new territory. It just depends how she handles the occasion. Will the crowd sort of help her in that sense? It may well could. And again, the conditions are really going to favour her if she is to get through. But if Andreeva doesn't progress, then I'd be a tad surprised. This should be a win for Andreeva.
Yeah, I think I've got to lean towards Andreeva as well. I mean, it's a wonderful story, as you said, Lois Besson, like overcoming that significant knee injury from 2024. The fact that she's just got to this point. Hopefully, this isn't the last we see of her. Hopefully, she's not one of those flash in the pan players that's kind of one of those weird and wonderful trivia questions in a few years' time, and she can continue to build from there. But I'll tell you what, let's move on to the second of the women's quarterfinals that will be on day 11. And this one, certainly no flashes in the pan here. Madison Keys versus Coco Gauff. All-American duel, a high-stakes clash between the top two remaining American talents, which means that they're going to have a US presence in the semi-finals. This is a really big matchup. After saving match points in the third round, Keys looks like she's found her rhythm, and she's looking to replicate or surpass her semi-final run previously in 2018. But we know Gauff can play well on the clay. She's the 2022 finalist, and she's probably in as good a clay court form as she's been.
Yeah, for Keys, we know clay isn't her best surface, but I think she's coming here a bit under the radar. Not just this game, but the whole tournament. Like, no one's really paying much attention to her. No one's talking about her. And this is a woman that's just won the Australian Open a few months ago, right? She's not a nobody. I get that she hasn't performed as well on clay as compared to her other surfaces and other Grand Slams, which is fair enough. But again in this game against Goff. I mean, America versus America, like they're going to know each other's game styles well. This could be a potential banana skin for Coco, definitely, because Keys will know how to. Move Coco around the court. She'll know obviously her tactics and her skill sets going into it. Obviously, they've played a few times as well. So, yeah, look for Coco. It's going to be a matter of how many times can you hit that forehand. I think Coco's been, especially in that first set against Alexandrova in the last round, she completely blew off the court. 6-love in that first set. I thought, wow, this is a really serious contender, which we already knew heading in. She was always up there as one of the favourites, but I thought watching that first set, just her forehand in particular really impressed me. And Madison Keys is going to have to be careful of that. Really disrupt Coco's game, because once Coco gets on top, it's very hard to disrupt that rhythm, right? And I think Keys is one of those players who can potentially do that. So, yeah, fascinating matchup in terms of that tactical battle there, because, like I said, they know each other's game styles, and it could even go to a 3 sets. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, if you look at their last time they clashed, it was back in Madrid in 2024 on clay, and Madison Keys actually got it done. But unsurprisingly, Christian, 7-6, 4-6, 6-4. So very little in it. And I think that's probably going to replicate, whether it's that result, but I think that's going to replicate what I'm expecting. This is going to be on a knife's edge through all 3 sets, and I think it will go the distance. But you've got to lean to Coco with the form she's had in recent weeks, and where she's sitting in her progress at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she made the Rome final. Pretty unlucky to lose that against Jasmine Paolini, because she was playing brilliantly that tournament with the Americans. So, yeah, she'll still come into this with confidence, no doubt. And for Keys, the same thing, right? Because, like I said, she hasn't performed well on this Grand Slam compared to the US and the Australian Open, for example. So, yeah, both. I guess Keys will have less to lose because Coco is going to come in as the favourite. And rightly so, given her form and her potential. So, yeah, I can see maybe 1 or 2 tie breaks again in this one. Both players really love to hold their serve, albeit on clay, which there's a lot more breaks of serve. So, yeah, we'll see how this shapes up.
Certainly going to be an interesting one. I'm going to lean to Coco, but not with an outrageous amount of confidence, probably more confident in the earlier prediction on the first quarterfinal. Let's switch tacks now. Let's head to the men's draw, and 2 really very different stories when it looks at the 2 quarterfinals here. We'll start with your man, the Italian, Yannick Sinner, comes up against Bublik in this one. Obviously, Yannick Sinner, he's on an 18-match Grand Slam winning streak. He's looking for his 3rd consecutive major title. Bublik on the other side, not many people predicting him to make the run he has. He's certainly been impressive. We were talking about it off air. Like, he has a very flary game. At his best, he can beat anyone. Like, he's the sort of guy that could upset a Sinner or an Alcaraz, but he's got to be able to deliver that for 3 full sets, which is the thing that I find hard. He's in his first Grand Slam quarterfinal, which is, again, considering his talent, probably almost as wild as the run that he's gone on this time.
I mean, just think back to that game against Alex, right? Alex de Minaur, you're 2 sets down. I mean, anyone watching that would have thought, okay, this bloke is going to throw in the towel, as he usually does at times, because we know he's the type of character to, sort of not give up, but he doesn't have that fight, that mentality, right, to stay in those moments. And that's what really shocked me, that he was able to come back and win that match. And then from there, it's just given him this boost of confidence out of absolutely nowhere, because who expected him in the quarterfinals of a clay tournament, let alone the French Open, right? Just absolutely crazy. And I think going into this game against Sinner, he's playing with a lot of freedom, and that's the scary part if you're a Sinner fan, what you've got to worry about. Because we saw in that game against Draper, a lot of drop shots, making Draper really uncomfortable at the net especially. And Draper admitted that post-match. He said, I didn't know how to deal with it, to be quite honest with you. So, yeah, for Sinner, obviously he's going to be very wary of that. Darren Cahill in his corner is going to obviously be trying to give him a few tips as to how to deal with that side of the net in terms of Bublik. But yeah, it could be a danger game, because again, Bublik he's not going to go in with nothing to lose. He won't fear anyone, and Sinner as well. So look, if Bublik loses in straight sets, he loses in straight sets. He's been open and honest about it, right? It's not like his life or tennis depends on it, which is really fascinating, his insights after the match. If you haven't yet watched it, I highly recommend you going ahead to watch his post-match press conference after his win against Draper, because it was really good listening.
Yeah, it was a bit of a master class on life work balance, if you call it that, for the rest of us. It was quite interesting. And the other thing I took from his press conference, I love the thing where he basically openly admitted that when he was serving for the match, look, if I hadn't have won it there, then I probably would have just gone out the back door and lost the match after that. Like he just owns, and it's not tanking. He just knows that he's got that mental challenge that once he falls at that hurdle of actually winning a match, that he often, as you said, just goes out there and doesn't win. And to your point, if someone told me now that this goes to 5 sets and Bublik somehow fights off the canvas and wins it, am I a little bit surprised? Yes. Am I saying that it's beyond possibility? No. But if someone also told me that Sinner wins this 2-3-2, I'm also not surprised. Like that's like it's worth tuning in just for the which Alexander Bublik's going to turn up. Like he's he's a roller coaster. He's a show on wheels.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, from a Sinner perspective, I mean, he's been absolutely steamrolling through this tournament, right? I mean, he probably had that one hiccup in the first round against Rinderknech when he was down a double break in the third set. But besides that, it's been pretty cruisy. And that could probably be a disadvantage, weirdly, because coming in being so comfortable, it might be a bit of a danger with Bublik. Again, like I said, having nothing to lose, going out there, playing freely, it can be very dangerous indeed. So Sinner, we know the type of level-headed guy he is. He's going to not take this for granted. He's not going to underestimate Bublik at any cost. He's going to be well aware that he's so mature for such a young age, and that's the reason why obviously he's a multiple-time Grand Slam champion, right? So, yeah, look, you said you wouldn't be overly surprised if Bublik wins. I sort of would be, because with Sinner's record, I mean, 18 straight wins at Grand Slam level, it's pretty surreal. And if you were to tell me before the tournament that Alexander Bublik was to snap Sinner's streak at the French Open on clay, I'd be saying you're absolutely having a laugh. So for me, it's got to be Sinner in straights. Maybe Bublik can take a set, if he's lucky. But yeah, Sinner for me.
Well, look, if Sinner can march through this one and a couple more, he can, continue that streak and possibly hold 3 of the Grand Slam titles, and then we'll be off to Wimbledon to see what he can do. And look, that's probably what many are predicting at this point, but I'm just looking forward to this. The baseline precision of Sinner, we know what he can do. He's just so accurate, so dangerous deep in the court, versus Bublik's unpredictable wild card. And I don't mean that in the sense of getting a wild card into a draw. I just mean you really don't know what you're going to get on any given day or from game to game or set to set with Alexander Bublik. He can be absolutely banging the door down in the first set and then looking like he doesn't know which end of the racket to hold later in the match. So I can't wait. That unpredictable shot maker is going to put a real liveliness into this. But look, Sinner's got the head-to-head edge on him. He is by far the better tennis player consistently. We know that. This is their first meeting on clay, which is surprising, but it is what it is. You've got to lean to Sinner. I'd love to see Bublik just get a set, the first or second set, just to add a bit of challenge and interest to it. But I just think Sinner gets this done in 3 or 4. Realistically, I don't even see it going to 5 unless Bublik's going to have to go to another level above what he did against De Minaur and against Draper to take it the distance. And as you say, Sinner's no mean feat in 5.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I see this going to 5, I'd be surprised as well. Like I said, I can see Bublik maybe taking a set here, but look, Sinner, his form, his consistency is just off the charts, and it's not like he's doing anything really special in these first few rounds. It's just simply blowing players off the court with his sheer power, right? Just from the baseline, just absolutely bossing it from back there. So, look, Bublik, we know the strength he's got is he's able to mix it up, right? He's able to mix his game, able to disrupt his opponents. And even for a player like Sinner, who knows, that might be the case. And that's where he might have a few openings and he can capitalize a bit. And then who knows from there, the confidence starts to grow. Sinner perhaps starts to doubt himself a bit. Bublik, performs a couple of underarm serves, and who knows, maybe it's game on. But yeah, we'll see. This should be entertaining though. Even if it's a Sinner straight set, it'll be entertaining. There's no doubt about that.
And I'm certainly looking forward to what Alexander Bublik's got left for us in his next press conference. That should be fascinating. That's turning into must-watch viewing. It's going to be a Netflix series of its own. So we'll wait and see. But look, something that you might want to talk about endurance in 5 sets. Something that could quite well go to 5 sets is our other quarterfinal. 2 players who are known for their endurance, both in terms of their physical ability to drag things out to 5 sets and stay in a fight, and also when you look at a Novak Djokovic up against Alexander Zverev match, realising that Novak Djokovic, he won his 100th title a week or so ago. He's now won his 100th French Open match and become the oldest quarterfinalist since 1971. That's 54 years ago. And then you've got Alexander Zverev on the other side, and we've talked about him a couple of times, Christian. All of the ability in the world, that is unchallenged, but the ability to actually turn that into a consistent performance, you feel like he should have won a Grand Slam by this point, and those chances are getting slimmer and slimmer. I think we talked about it on the Chris McPherson show in the lead up to the Australian Open, saying, when does he do it if he doesn't do it now? And those windows, when you start to see some of these young names coming through, that are starting to emerge, is you feel shrinking for him. But this is a battle of two absolute, gritty, hard-edged, hard-nosed war horses with lots of ability. It could be an enthralling five-setter if they can both get into it. But how do you see it shaping up?
Yeah, I mean, these two have met so many times. Just from memory, they've met 13 in total throughout their career. Djokovic leads at 8-5 in the head-to-head. But if you remember back to the Australian Open in the semi-final where Djokovic and Zverev played, obviously Novak had that injury, the hamstring tear, which sort of forced him to pull out after that first set tiebreak. But before that match, I was saying that this is going to be match of the tournament. Because of these two, styles of play, they're pretty similar, right, from the back of the baseline, trying to dictate the points. It was just unfortunate that Novak had to retire because even that first set was high quality. If you actually go back and watch it, so look, in this match, I'm probably leaning towards Djokovic in all honesty. Just his form leading in, he's slowly creeping, slowly regaining that confidence, and he admitted post match in his win against Norrie, saying that. He got asked why did he enter the Geneva tournament. It was a 250. Why did he do that? And he said, "Look, I just want to get my confidence up. I needed to regain that feeling of winning. And once you get Djokovic in that sort of mode, it's very difficult then to really knock him off his perch, I guess." So for Zverev, if he is to win this match, he's got to be more aggressive. He cannot be passive because you let Djokovic dictate. From the back of the court, we know he's still got the defensive capabilities, and then Zverev, like, when he's sort of backed in the corner, when he gets nervous, when he gets timid, that's when he sorts of, tries to, not go for his shots as often, and that's what sort of kills him on multiple occasions, including those 3 times that he's made Grand Slam finals. Dating back last year when he lost the final at the French to Carlos Alcaraz, he had his moments, he had his chances, but couldn't convert, and part of that was just not being able to hone in and convert those chances, not being aggressive enough. So I think that's the real key here for Zverev if he is to win this match. But I'm not too sure about you, Chris, but I'm leaning towards Novak just for those reasons I highlighted.
Yeah, I think I have to lean towards Novak. And when you look at those times that they've met on the big stage, when we talk about, the majority of these big tournaments, yes, Zverev did beat him at the Olympics. I know that in Tokyo, that is not Paris. But when we look at, the amount of times where these guys have come together in quarterfinals and semi-finals of Grand Slams, and realistically the only time that Alexander Zverev has taken the points was last year when Novak was injured. They met at this stage, I think 2019 at Roland Garros, and Novak did what Novak does, and 5-2-2. I wouldn't put that past him again. I think he's going to want to make a statement, and he'll also know just how gritty Zverev is if you do start to pull things out of him and push him to find those deep spots. But as you say, Zverev's undoing has so often been in these big matches, being passive early, trying to just sit back and play strokes. And you can't do that against any of the top players, let alone against the wily veteran that is Novak Djokovic. So, look, I'd love to see this go to 5. I'd love to see it be an enthralling, deep, long contest. But for me, I think Novak's going to be too strong. And the thing that does intrigue me is both of these guys have been polarising with crowds. It'll be interesting to see who the French crowd really get behind here. I think they'll lean to Novak. I think Alex is probably, Sasha, as he's also known, is probably more on the nose with the crowd. And that might actually work in his favour, though. I think when he gets painted as the villain, he gets his back up, he gets a chip on his shoulder, and that's when the aggression does come for him. So that could be the spark that he needs.
Yeah, potentially you might be right. I was looking back also, just thinking about the rest time for these two. I mean, Djokovic hasn't dropped a set yet this tournament, which is pretty surprising, to be honest. I would have expected him to drop a set or two. And then Zverev as well in that last round against Grexport. The Dutchman retired midway through the second set through an injury. So, yeah, both of these players should come in pretty fresh, and that's why I'm expecting a really tight tussle and potentially a 4 or 5 setter for sure. Given the quality, and they've had a lot of close battles in the past. I think US Open a few years ago, they went to 5 sets as well, where Djokovic just scraped over the line. So, yeah, Novak's got that mental edge for sure, and that potentially could come into play here. But I saw a photo as well, Zverev holding the Champions League trophy, because we know Ousmane Dembele for the PSG play came in, called Philippe Chatrier yesterday to present the trophy in front of the French fans, and I'm just thinking it'd be the biggest meme if Zverev doesn't go on to win a Grand Slam title, just to think that's going to be the only trophy he lifts up, which is a bit savage, but I don't know, that's the direction we're heading in towards, Chris.
Yeah, we certainly are. It's going to be interesting, and to that point, just looking back through the draw, they've essentially played the same number of sets thanks to that walkover. Well, realistically, Zverev's actually played an advantage, despite the fact Novak hasn't dropped a set because Zverev only dropped that one set to Jesper de Jong in the second round, I think. So neither of them has played, quite often we get to this stage of tennis, especially with these two, and one of them, might have had, a couple of five-setters or a couple of fours, but they've both had relatively easy progress. The temperatures are dropping down a little bit as well, which is going to suit, two players who, are on the older side, especially Novak, as we talked about, 54 years since someone of 38 plus has made it to a Grand Slam, to a French Open, quarterfinal. So, look, if anyone can keep outlasting Father Time, it is Novak Djokovic, and that's the way I'm going to go. And as well, because I can't, I really just want to see that. We don't know how many more times we're going to get the Djokovic versus Sinner sort of matchups. Djokovic is getting towards the back end of his career, obviously, and so I'd love to see that in the semi-finals. But it'd be some story if Alex Zverev could get through this. He's going to have to get through Djokovic, then possibly Sinner, and then Alcaraz, theoretically. And if he gets through that and wins a Grand Slam, well, he'll never deserve it more. And as much as I know people have got their issues with some of the things that have happened with him off court, I'd love the storyline for the career that he's had and the ability that he has. You feel that career would only be best told as a full story with a Grand Slam at some point.
Yeah, I think so. I think he gets portrayed as a villain a bit too much, to be honest. I think off the court, he's a nice guy. Talks to the media a lot. He's very open and honest. Obviously, with those, a few things that have happened behind the scenes and off court, is sort of painted a bit of a dark picture, unfortunately. But look, like I said, he's made 3 Grand Slam finals, hasn't been able to convert. He's had so many great opportunities. I mean, you think back to the US Open final, 2 sets up against Dominic Thiem. Like, those are mental scars that carry with you for life, right? And for him, if he is to win a Grand Slam in the future, you have to sort of tip your hat off to him, because to sort of eliminate that and erase that in your mind, to say, okay, that's behind me, I'm going to push forward and really go for it. That's an effort in itself, and that's a real... it'd be a confidence boost for him moving forward. If he does win one, maybe he can win multiple and add to that, 2, 3, who knows? Maybe he can be consistently up there with Alcaraz and the Sinners, really competing, because he is, 27, 28 years of age. He's sort of getting to that stage where he's sort of hitting his peak or thereabouts. If he does happen to win it, he'll, like you said, have to get past Djokovic, potentially Sinner and Alcaraz. That's, there's going to be no one more deserving, that's for sure.
Certainly not. Well, we will know more when we regather over the coming days. But for now, Christian Monaghan from the First Serve, a big thank you to you. If people want to go a bit more in depth and catch more articles about the French Open, they can check out the First Serve's website, thefirstserve.com.au, where they'll find some of your wonderful work. But until tomorrow, where I look forward to starting to talk semi-finals with you, let's call it a wrap.
Cheers, Chris. Always a pleasure.